Today, we're going to step away from tuning for the sake of tone specifically and dive into tuning for practical purposes, the space you're in, the articulation you need, and the music you're trying to make within that context. This is not just for working drummers. This is for anybody that enjoys sitting down at their instrument and playing some music. We often end up in a narrow tuning range when we're coming up because we want to sound like the music that we like. But it turns out that the full range of the instrument is actually tools we can use to expand inside of the context we're in. It's not just about sounding like a different drummer or playing some jazz. Since we're going to be exploring a really wide range of tunings today, we decided to use these Artistry Series drums from WTS that we happen to have in the studio. This isn't a sponsored episode or an ad or anything like that. We're just really enjoying them and they feel appropriate for the context today. Every tuning range has its gains and losses depending on what kind of playing you're doing and what you need out of your instruments. If we set aside the idea of going for a good sound and just focus on what we need to happen, all of these ranges start to become something usable no matter what kind of music we're playing. If the idea of what you need from your drums feels foreign or you're not even sure what that means to you, this is an excellent opportunity to get into that idea because as it turns out, they're very manipulatable. There's a lot of options in here, and the more you explore, the more you'll get an idea of what you're actually looking for, rather than just setting them and deciding that it's okay. These needs could include things like the feel of the drum. How do they feel, and are you able to play the way you want based on how they feel? This isn't always something that we talk about with tuning because tuning tends to be really siloed into the sound you're making, but how it feels to make that sound is a pretty big variable. As you start to move your drums around in their tuning range, looking for the sound that you want, this is going to affect that feel. It's going to affect the technique necessary to use that drum effectively for what you want to play. And along the way, there's going to be optimal spots that balance out a sound that works and a feel that also works. We've been involved in discussions recently and even made some videos about the concept of sweet spots with particular drums. And as it turns out, the space that you're in oftentimes defines what tuning spot is actually really sweet out of a given drum or a set of drums. Getting comfortable with moving through the range and being able to identify when you're in a good spot based in the room that you're in or the space that you're playing is another really great tool to have in your belt, and you get that from this process. One of the biggest buzzwords that we run into dealing with drums in general is the idea of articulation. Some people tune their drums extremely low for articulation, and some people tune them extremely high, similarly for articulation. And this is where the dynamic response comes into play. If you have extremely low tuned drums and you hit them as hard as you can, you get a very sharp sound, which has a lot of articulation, but you have to hit them pretty hard to get it. On the flip side, if we crank them up really high, perhaps for a world music or jazz situation, you can get extreme articulation at very low volumes, but the drums might choke out if you start to really swing for the fences, and you're losing that low-end response that you may need for your music. If one or the other of these ranges is working for you, there's adaptation you can make through technique and through practice in that range to get more of what you're looking for, if overall that range is getting you what you need. This is a great time to mention as well and remind everyone that a drum set is a set of instruments. So if you are changing the range of the whole kit at once through what feels like a similar increment, that doesn't mean that you're going to get similar results from each drum, because every size is going to behave differently in a given space. So that variable is going to come back to haunt us if we think we can just go a certain amount and evenly bring up the response all around. Make sure that you address each drum separately and work with what it is giving you rather than going for some kind of prescription and perhaps getting frustrated when the response isn't what you want. If you've found a range that's working for what you're looking for, but you're also discovering that one of the drums, maybe the bass drum, is suddenly getting you way more response than you need or way more volume, this is a great time to circle back to that technique again and understand that if you want to use these sounds and they're getting you what you need, you have to start to adjust your technique to match. This is a wonderful challenge, and don't get discouraged. Take it a little bit at a time. It's really worth it once you can totally control those instruments. We would be remiss in talking about this if we didn't address the idea of just enjoying the exploration of playing a sound in a context that's not what you would expect. This again is not just for working drummers. Exploration is for everybody. It's a level playing field, and it's a lot of fun. There's no rule book that says that you have to use really low-tuned drums for this kind of music, really high-tuned drums for this kind of music, or anything in between. And ultimately, tuning is a way to separate ourselves from what everybody else is doing and get a personalized sound, not just the tuning and the technique, but also the range. Remember that inspiration is available as long as we want to sit down and consider the possibilities, hopefully with an open mind, beginner's mindset, and give yourself the opportunity to enjoy a thing that is totally outside of your wheelhouse. Narrow-mindedness gets you really narrow results, and we really hear a lot from people that feel like there's one way to do this. That's ultimately just really sad, because to play the same sound for your whole life and just hang your hat on that that's the right way to do it is throwing away so much exciting opportunity. Again, even if you're just playing at home for fun by yourself, remember that there's nothing wrong with any of this. There's no right way to do it or wrong way to do it. And if it makes you happy, just run with it. In an era such as this, where so many are trying to sell us our sound with a product or an idea or some kind of shortcut, remember that exploration is going to be the way to your sound, and your sound doesn't have to be one singular tuning. It could be whatever makes you happy.